Friends, my kids. Yeah, precious. This was a moment ago. This was a moment ago. Yeah, we've named our kids based upon their temperaments and what we believe for their futures. If you're listening in, kids, I don't think you are because you're working. You're working right now. Okay, the boss man would be upset if you were hanging out with Dad's live stream. Um, But yeah, here's Rich. We call her Rich. You just, if you knew, you knew, right? If you know, you know. This is Happy. hmm And here's Famous. Rich, Happy, and Famous. If you were to name your children based upon kind of what they're bringing to the game, yeah, Rich right now is, I think, in Singapore. Um, Happy, I'm sure, is got a couple of loaves of bread getting ready to go into the oven and just cooking just a delicious meal for he and the kiddos tonight. And Famous, that's a big fat secret. I have no idea what she's up to, but yeah, my kids mean everything to me. They're precious. Those faces, they had a lot of hope back then, and today they're doing really, really, really well. They're adults. Two of them are making more humans. Yeah, all three are working in just really good jobs, building careers, and yeah, Mom and I couldn't be more proud, right? Um, and you know what hasn't changed, even though that they're they're all off the cell phone plan. I tell you what, you are not fully free as a parent until your kids are off the cell phone plan. And honestly, just ask that question. Somebody might be like, no, I can't, they can't be on our insurance anymore because they've aged out. But how many 30-year-olds are still on their parents' cell phone plan? That's eye popping. If you just ask those questions, just ask it. I think you'll be amazed. Yeah, you'll be amazed. But what hasn't changed? They're precious. Our kids are precious, precious. Every single one. Um, every single night, I hit the hay and I give my thanks to the Lord above, and just I wonder. Yeah, I think they're okay. I believe that they're working in very good places with good bosses and good cultures. Um, I want to make sure that their bosses see them as I do. Yeah, I don't think that's selfish, right? We want the absolute best for our kiddos. And man, the amount of time, a balanced life is 8 hours of work and 8 hours of sleep and 8 hours of horsing around, right? No. Who lives that way? Maybe someday, but that's not today. Most of us spend the 10 hours at work and, the 6 hours at sleep, and the other time just trying to sew everything together that's like hanging by a thread. The stuff that keeps me up, um, all three of my kids have stayed in jobs because their bosses actually see them as human beings. So I'm so grateful. Um, they're not headcount, right? They're not talent. They're real humans. And so I got lucky. Their bosses get it. Uh, but here's what I can't stop thinking about. If you do the math, you think, okay, if I am leading the organization, that organization has, let's just say 500 people times how many hours in a year? That's about 2,000 hours, work hours per year, right? That's nearly 1 million hours of somebody else's precious kid time that you're responsible for. We call that authority, that you have the authority over, right? Not FTEs, although you got to call it something for your, yeah, spreadsheets. They're not human capital. Somebody's daughter, somebody's spouse, somebody's brother, somebody's son. The person, the person that their dad looks at in old photos and still says they're precious and gets a little lump on the throat and kind of reminisces, right? No resentments, just reminiscing. Look, I'm not here to shame anybody, honestly. I've been that leader. I have been that leader. Um, 9 p.m. text calling it necessary or prioritizing programs over people. But here's what I've learned: how you lead doesn't just affect the org chart. It affects whether somebody's family recognizes them when they walk through the door at night. Okay. Yeah. If that makes you feel a little uncomfortable, I'm just going to say sorry, not sorry. Right? Stay with me. Stay with me here. Here's the pattern. Right, on Monday morning at 6:45, you're in the car. You're having that alignment meeting. Quick alignment call with your director because you got a big board meeting on Thursday, and your board is asking the big questions again. So you communicate in this vibe of urgency. It's not hostile. It just has a bit of an edge to it that says, I need this yesterday. And then let's fast forward until that evening, 5:45. Okay. That director is walking through the threshold of their door, their spouse, their kids, all, just needing something. But that stress from the 6:45 a.m. phone call, it still lingers. And at 7:15, the kids are asking for help with the homework, but your director is mentally still in that parking lot, calculating timelines and managing uh, just their staff who interpret their direction differently, and they snap at their kids, not because they're bad parents, because that urgency just doesn't stay in the office. You know what I'm talking about? I think about this with my own kids, somebody else's urgency becoming their stress, right? My grandkids shouldn't have to bear the weight of somebody's urgency unfairly coming at one of my kids and them taking it out on my grandkids. Yeah, but that's a real thing. Think of about 70%, a little more than that actually, of chronic illnesses are stress related. The biggest source is work stress. Okay. The biggest cause of work stress: leaders who forgot that people aren't machines, leaders who see their people as FTE and headcount. And here's what just has me bolt right. That principle, they're doing the same thing. Let's just say they have 45 teachers who go home to their families, right? Who bring to the classroom, or 600 students are feeling it. It all has this trickle down coefficient effect, doesn't it? The, the industrial model didn't just break the org chart, it broke families, folks, right? Uh, Drop a comment. This is a live stream, so just drop a comment right now if you're feeling this. Just that precipitation of a harsh phone call that goes to a director that impacts principals, that impacts teachers, that impacts students. Say, I feel this. Go ahead and just put the comment, I feel this, because there is some gravitas to this. I'm not saying everybody has to be nice. But folks, we're not alone in this. Let me show you something that I have to simplify this because these are kind of subjective topics, and most leaders think that competence, right, IQ plus just muscling down, hard work, that equals results. It certainly did in the industrial era, but the actual equation is how you make people feel times their IQ times their effort equals amazing performance. Okay? You miss any of those variables, everything multiplies by 0. Okay? If you don't make people feel valued, you might have the smartest person in the world. That smarts times your 0 equals 0 impact. You're just not going to get the impact. Math honestly doesn't care about your strategic plan or your professional development initiative, right? Math just says anything times 0 is still, you're just not going to get it. Yeah. At max, you're going to get discretionary effort. And about 60%. That's honestly where people are at right now. If they don't have the extra care and attention, they're going to give you 60%. And guess what? They're also drawing 100% of that paycheck. Okay. Pretty sweet gig, honestly. 60% effort for 100% pay means you've got to hire some more people. And I was just in a conversation yesterday at a campus conference room table with the executive team where looking at a budget that needs to be short-sighted. Just we got to shorten this thing. And yeah, requests for more people. And yeah, the reality, the conversation was we've got 100% workload, 100% workload managed by about 60% of our team's performance. Well, what does that equate to? 100% workload managed by 60% of the available energy. We call that engagement, or actually inertia. 60%. That leads to lots of people burned out that are just having to pitch in all of the extra effort to rebalance this thing. It leads to lowering quality of the work. And oftentimes it just leads to just public displays of failure. You're just not going to be producing the things that your community expects, right? So back to this, thinking of humans as expenses. Frederick Taylor, we all studied the industrial era. People are costs to manage. 85% of your budget is people. I wish I had a nickel for every time I said that. I would be $3 richer today, right? Budget cuts, right sizing. The language it's just designed so you don't have to feel what you're doing, right? A superintendent once bragged about this innovative STEM initiative. This was a few years back, but I still remember it. I asked, "Well, how many people are working there?" And he said about 250. I said, "So you'll champion programs, but what you're investing in the 250 people who have to implement them, do they feel like they matter, or are they just the mechanisms for your strategic plan so you get the Superintendent of the Year award because you launched this STEM initiative?" There was a long pause, and I had a good relationship with this fella. He said, "I never really thought about it that way." Yeah, when you treat people as expenses, they will give you expense level performance. They'll show up. We call it, um, what do we call it? You'll get compliance. I was looking for the C word and not complacency, although they're probably similar. You'll get compliance. What do I have to do? They'll show up, they'll comply, and they'll collect 100% of their paycheck. But their gifts, their creativity, the heart, you'll never see that, right? Progress. You've read the books. You know that EQ matters. You implement the wellness programs and the programs and the initiatives that actually shine the light on the humanness and the human dignity of your people. But you're still transactional. Let's just call it. You're still transactional. They're nice because the research says that it improves performance. Um, a president that I know launched this. It was a wellness initiative. Yeah, yeah. Mental health resources for all the, and little take a 5-minute break to do this, that, and the other thing. We've all seen, and then we get the t-shirts, and then we have that one event on a Friday, and you have the people that put the booths up, and nobody really attends, and yeah, work-life balance stuff. The board loved it. It offered some good photo ops, right? But the enrollment was just dripping and dropping. Um, so guess what gets cut first, right? It's that wellness program didn't even last a hot minute. It was there and gonzo. It was never really sustained because they weren't really about caring for people, not as they're not as their precious children, right? They're just managing turnover. It's like, oh my gosh, how do we have retention of students, but also retention of employees, right? Not necessarily retention of humans. A little bit different there, isn't it? Okay. We can sense when they're being managed versus when they're being cared for, right? It's kind of the place where everything changes when you're in a culture that actually is differentiated from the rest of the noise out there. Um, just knowing that everyone in your organization was raised by somebody who loves them desperately today, who hopes they're safe, who's praying that you will treat them as they deserve, who wants them to flourish, right? Who's trusting you, whether you know it or not, to care for their child. This isn't soft, okay? This is just recognizing the weight of what you've been entrusted with. Call it stewardship if you want, but there's that level of authority that knows, yeah, there's a sense of responsibility there. I've got a story to tell. So it's not fascinating, but it's just straight up pretty direct. Good hard work and Soup in the Midwest. About a dozen years in the role, solid leader, built a reliable system. Enrollment was good test scores. The board was very, very stable. They loved him. He's got a director of operations. Okay. Now, oh, just me saying that, you've got a name in your head. Okay. Somebody that is that personification of a director of operations. Maybe you've got one. Sharp guy, workhorse, been there for years, runs a really tight ship, gets stuff done, right? That guy. Okay. But the super noticed something. That guy who was there for every event, was there for every crisis, was there basically through the weekends because there's stuff going on all the time. The guy never took a vacation, worked through lunches, first one in, the last one out. You know that person. So one day the super just said, hey, and the guy's name was Vic. He said, Vic, take Friday off. And I mean it. Clear your calendar. Vic pushes back and says, hey, we've got, facility assessments that are due, and the transportation RFP is, and the Soup just says, I don't care. Take Friday off. Skedaddle. So Vic does. Yeah. And Monday morning, the Soup catches him in the parking lot. Right. They're both there at 0600. Right. Hey, how was your day off on Friday? And Vic stands there and he says, my daughter thanked me. She's 16 years old. She said, Pops, thanks. Thanks for showing up to my game. She was a soccer player. Dad, I kind of forgot what it felt like to have you on the sidelines. That's it. That's the story. Don't need to say much more, right? I've been that parent. But this case, one forced day off, one high school soccer game, right? A 16-year-old girl who just forgot what it feels like to have dad showing up for her. That superintendent wasn't a superhero, didn't fix everything, but he saw that human being being drowned in work culture, right? And just threw him a little rope. So the question is, how many people in your team have kids who've forgotten what it feels like to have their mom, their dad on the sidelines showing up? Yeah. That 22-year-old department chair who doesn't have work-life balance, that principal who never takes a vacation like Vic, they're people whose families are losing them in your organization, right? You've got at least a handful of people like this. The question is, are you willing to force them to do what's right for their family, or will you keep rewarding their slow disappearance? That's a heavy question. So here's what I want you to do this week, because we can't just let that sit, right? Not next month, next week. Okay, so you got a few days to plan for this before your next cabinet meeting. You've all got the yearbooks. You've got pictures of your team. Okay, pull it out and look at your team members before the cabinet meeting through the lens that says their parents are trusting me. Living or not, they're trusting me. How am I doing? How am I doing? And be honest about that, right? Your director of special ed, compliance officer, somebody's precious child, navigating some of the most impossible mandates, right? While trying to serve students with dignity. Yeah. The other thing, let's think about dinner time. The dinner table audit. Think about your last interaction with one of your direct reports. Now imagine them at dinner with their family that same day. Ask yourself, did I make them a better spouse today, a better parent today, or did I send that stress home with them? Right? Not did I intend to, just straight up, did I? Yeah. Gulp. Yeah, heavy stuff. Heavy stuff. The other one's a conversation. Just pick one person. Let's say you've got 10 people that report to you. Pick one person each month and schedule a 30-minute. You might want to involve some a coffee or grab a piece of pizza or something. No agenda except for, you know what? I haven't had the chance to do this. I want to know you as a human, right? Not just your role and your employee ID number and your privileged parking spot. What do you love to do outside of work? What are you worried about? Tell me about where you grew up. Tell me about your preferred future. Tell me about what would make life better, not work. What would make life better for you? And then just shut up and just listen. All right? It'll feel awkward because we're just not wired to do this very well. You might even push back and say, Joe, hogwash. This isn't my role as a leader. Yeah. That discomfort, I think, is a diagnostic. Listen to it. If you can't have that kind of a conversation, I think you're treating your people more like functions, right, than as family members. Fair. Which means I think you're getting function level performance instead of human level devotion. You've seen campuses where this has been transformed, and you wonder how in the world do they still steal the best talent from other organizations, and they've just got a long line of people saying, when you have an opening, pick me. Some of you are probably thinking, Joe, this sounds great, but my board wants results, right? My community has high expectations. Well, then show them the results. You can look at some of the highest performing cultures in America and what they're producing. Some of the best school systems that we've served, we've seen teacher retention move from about 78%, which isn't broken, it's not good, to 93, 94%. Student achievement in that third quartile to the first quartile. It just jumps. Staff recommending district to take their own kids to, if you've got staff members that aren't sending their kids to your school system, but we've seen that jump as well. At the university level, we've seen faculty satisfaction surveys that just like, whoa, what's going on, right? First year retention, 70+% into the 80+%. It's not rocket science. Okay. People will perform when their headlights go out, so do their heart lights. So invert that. If their heart light goes out, then the headlight. Yeah. Your board doesn't care about philosophy. They care that it works. And this produces results. It's proven. Um, people who feel that they matter will move freaking mountains. Okay. We're talking 10x, not just your 2x. We're hoping to, we're gonna play the game of seeing these games. No, we're talking 10x movement. So here's the question: can you name one person whose life, not career, life is genuinely better because they work for you? Not their salary, not their benefit package, not their title, honestly, because of how you see them. So if you can't immediately name somebody, whew, I had work to do. You've got work to do. And that work is the most important work you'll ever do. Because leadership, it's not about strategic plans and data. Leadership is about what people are saying about you at the dinner table. Okay. It's about whether somebody's kid gets a better parent because of how you led that day. Yeah, every parent whose child works for you is holding that photo. Rich, happy, and famous. Yeah. And they're asking, I wonder what you're thinking about my kids. Please see them in a way that I see them. Please don't break what I spent years building. I watched a father walk his daughter down the aisle last week at a wedding. Beautiful, but just that I've done it myself. It's that giving away, right? Yeah. So let me say it for them. Please don't break what they've spent years building. It's not in your job description, but it is your responsibility. Okay. So if this opens something in you and you're realizing that you need to just shift how you see your people and you want some help, um, yeah, I've put this lesson that has some good points in it, but also some very good discussion questions. Um, might take some courage, but if you're really in love with your mission, you ought to have that same commensurate level of courage to do this the right way and have a conversation about it with your core people because it's the culture that you're building. Right. So I'll post the leader lesson, which is just the research that goes along with this, but also the leader guide, which will give you the opportunity to lead this discussion with your culture builders. It's free. I would invite you into the group. It's just a free community where um, I realize how fast you're running and how heavy this stuff is that you got to lift and you don't have time to think about how am I going to build the right things within my culture. I'm helping you. Okay. So this week's guide is complete. Stewarding somebody's precious child. You'll see it in there. There's exercises, conversation starters, some facilitation notes. There's no cost, no strings. We're putting this together because it's the right thing, like eating oatmeal, right? Just the right thing to do. So drop a comment. Tell me one person whose life that you've seen just better because of how you've led, boss. I know there's a lot of great stories out there. Make it real. And if you found value here, please share this with another leader who just needs it. This is live now, but it will stay. It'll stay in the recorded stuff as it gets posted. So send it along, right? And thank you for being here. Honestly, for watching. We've shifted these little live streams to 4 in the afternoon Central because so many of you, when we were recording earlier around noon, would be having these noon meetings. So yeah, hopefully this is breaking through and it's working really, really well for you. your community, your students, they deserve leaders who see their people as somebody's precious children. Yeah, you can be that leader, boss, right? Starting today. Hey, I will see you